This is such an incredibly common drawing question. It's almost a reflex to ask when we first start to draw. But the problem with it is that it shows a fundamental misunderstanding, I believe, about the drawing process. And that's what makes it such an unhelpful question to ask. Because if we don't understand, if we don't appreciate what we're doing, what the drawing process really is about, it's going to be even more difficult to get to a place that we're happy with. So, what's the question we shouldn't ask? Well, it's, tell me, how do you draw, and insert there whatever you want? How do we draw trees, leaves, cars, faces, people, buildings, horses, dogs, scenery, mountains, water reflections, bricks? How do we draw? Anything at all can be inserted into that question. And to ask this question betrays the belief that there's a way we draw certain things. And I think this goes back to childhood. Who doesn't remember sitting in school drawing as a young infant's kid and looking at what the other kids were drawing and asking, how do you draw a tree? And they've already drawn a stick with a circle on top. And we go, oh, that's how you draw a tree. And now that we've discovered how to draw a tree, we're looking out to see what other things we can learn how to draw. What does a house look like when you draw it? Oh, it's a box with little squares inside for windows and a square for the door and box on top for the chimney. And oh, that's how you draw smoke, is it? Oh, you've drawn a sun in yours. I'll put a sun in mine too. It's just a circle with some rays coming out from all directions, and so on. Now, as we move through school, often these symbols, and that's what they are, they're symbols that we all agree represent a tree or the sun. These symbols can change a bit. They can become more sophisticated. And by the time we hit maybe junior high school age, we might be drawing faces that have very stereotyped eyes and lips and noses and ears. And yet, in reality, they're not that much more sophisticated in many ways than the symbols for the sun and the house in our much younger childhood. They're still not drawn from life. They're still a way that we all agree represents or is a symbol for eyes and a mouth. And then we reach a more adult age, or close enough. But we've somehow got stuck in this way of thinking that there's a way to draw certain things, and I need to discover the way. And if I want to learn to draw really well, I need to discover the best way. What is the way the best artists draw leaves or dogs or horses or scenery? And my focus is on a technique. My focus is on certain lines to put on the paper in a certain way. So when I ask, how do you draw leaves? What I'm expecting is to be given some sort of pattern or texture or way of putting lines on the paper that create leaves. And I think leaves are a great example to show the problem with this way of thinking, but also to show a much better way of thinking and a much better question to be asking. In fact, a question which will lead us to be drawing the sorts of leaves or faces or scenery or houses that we're wanting to draw. If you were to ask me, Stephen, tell me how you draw leaves, I would have to ask you back, well, are you drawing a medium-sized gum tree? Or are you drawing a very large, tall gum tree? Is your gum tree going to be a small, quick drawing, or a still relatively quick drawing, but not as quick? Or are the leaves of a very large tree drawn in quite a bit of detail? Are the leaves in a tangle of leaves in a bush scene? What's the lighting for the leaves? What's the overall composition? What are the elements that you're wanting to bring out in the scene with the leaves? What's the overall shape of the tree, and what's the lighting on these leaves? What role do the leaves play in the overall scene? Are they the star event? Are they a support act? Or are they really providing value, contrast to highlight something else as in this scene? Are we seeing these leaves with architecture? If so, what's the primary focus of the scene? And are there different leaves around from different trees that need to look different from each other? In putting all these leaves together, what's the scale? How large are the trees? How far away are we? How many of them are together? What's the lighting? If we're closer, what are the characteristics of these leaves and how they look and how they're attached to the trees? Their colours, the lightness or darkness, and how that affects how they look. The branches, the way the branches grow on the tree and therefore provide a skeletal support to the leaves. Or is it a very small sapling in effect with fairly immature leaves in a quick gestural style of drawing? Will we have to work hard in the scene to separate the leaves so that we can make sense of the scene? What effects of light and shadow and shade are we wanting to create with the leaves as well? Is it really about the leaves or is it about something else? Because tell me how we draw leaves is not the question I should be asked. The question I should be asked is, this is the sort of tree I'm wanting to draw in this sort of way. What sort of marks on the paper will capture the way this particular tree at this particular distance, in this particular lighting, that I want to draw in this particular time, in this particular way, using this particular medium, because all of these questions need to be taken on board to work out which marks are going to create these particular leaves in these particular places. There is no magic mark for leaves. There is no magic technique that we can always just draw whenever we see foliage. Instead, what we should be doing is exploring the range of marks that we can create to convey the way different types of foliage look at different distances in different types of drawings in different conditions. And we often have to use many of the answers to these questions in the one drawing, where we have leaves quite close, where we draw actual leaves. Some we draw as light against dark, and some we draw as dark against light. As we move further back, we create marks to convey the feel of leaves of foliage further back. That may just be straight hatching, which without the rest of the picture, you couldn't tell what this was. But in this context, we read them very easily as foliage in the distance. And the way we may do foliage for a small shrubby bunch of stems, different again. And of course, these are the questions. We don't just ask about leaves. These are the questions we ask for whatever we're drawing. Because there is no, how do you draw a house? Or how do we draw this or that? Tell me how you draw this. Tell me how you draw architecture. It's always, what am I wanting to draw? Having a good understanding of what I'm looking at and then working out what marks will create the effect that I need to create to capture the feel of this particular group of subjects under these conditions. And then to draw them in the time I have available in the style I want to use in the overall drawing. And the answer, of course, is as different as the number of different leaves we can find. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Hope this was helpful. Hope it helps set our thought processes into a direction where there are actually answers that will help our drawing. But look, whatever you draw, however you end up drawing it, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.